Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health?
Hi, everyone. Dr. Adriana Popescu here with you with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. I'm excited to have someone very special with me today, someone that I've known for many years and who at one point was working with me as my chiropractor. Dr. Kim Makoi is a chiropractor here in the San Francisco Bay Area who bridges science and spirit to help people release the emotional energy stored in the body. He's a fellow level 3 NET practitioner. He's the author of the new book, Booze to Balance, a chill 30-day liver healing program, a lighthearted yet profound journey of liver healing. He's also the creator of 88 Blessings, a daily video project celebrating the sacred and the silly in our human experience. With humor, compassion, and deep insight, Dr. Kim reminds us that enlightenment doesn't have to be so serious and that balance is more attainable than we think. Welcome, Dr. Kim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. Always start off the show with getting to know our guest a bit. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your story and how it is that you came to be doing this work that you're doing.
Yeah, let's see. What's the short version of the story? So, well, when I first aspired to be a chiropractor, I thought that it would be simple, super simple. I thought, oh, what a great idea! You just learn these 24 bones and you line them up, and then people get better. And I was like super young and just had this like simple idea of health, but almost immediately I realized that there's more to it than that, and that emotions actually played a huge role. Like really early on, I realized that a lot of people's back pain and structural issues were heavily influenced by emotional things going on, and that there were different things you could do to help alleviate that. So I got really interested in somatic mind body things early on, and early on NET was the thing that really made a profound shift for me personally. So that's how I decided, oh, I need to learn this. And of course, that's how I know you, through the NET world.
Right. Right. NET was absolutely instrumental. Neuro-emotional technique. We'll get into what it is. We'll give people a little primer on it. Yeah, it was instrumental in me being able to heal my body from Lyme disease and chronic fatigue syndrome that, I struggled with for many, many years. And I think it's an often overlooked part in traditional Western medicine approaches. We don't get that in the Eastern approaches, so which is why I'd love to hear more about that and with NET, like how all that works. But yeah, give us a little lesson in NET.
Yeah, so NET, neuro emotional technique, is a mind body approach. It was kind of developed by a chiropractor. So initially, it was mostly chiropractors practicing it, but really, it's open to any kind of like licensed health practitioner. And these days, really, I think psychotherapists and mental health practitioners are taking off. And the idea is it takes a lot. It takes a lot from traditional Chinese medicine, 5-element theory, Chinese medicine, along with Western concepts like conditioned responses in the body, how trauma gets stuck in the body, things like that. And it just is this like beautiful coming together of different approaches where we're using muscle testing, which is a form of biofeedback, to get a sense of like what is or isn't triggering body stress responses, and then using different body points, meridian points from Chinese medicine or pulse points from Chinese medicine, to make that connection between the body and the emotion. So there's a lot of different mind body techniques out there. There's EFT, EMDR. There's all kinds of things. But what I love about NET is it's such a streamlined. It's a simple basic structure. You can do it in as little as like 2 minutes in a short office visit, or you can stretch it out into a longer therapeutic type session. I love how it's just a clean, simple approach that you can kind of turn the dial down if somebody is in a really triggered delicate state where maybe they can't go too deep, or if somebody is ready, willing, and able to go deep, you can do that. I just love that about NET. It's a very elegant kind of system.
And I love it too because you don't have to have like a cognitive understanding of something, right? Like,
Mhm.
in traditional talk therapy, you're supposed to be able to figure out like what the thing is and then you can change it. But so many people don't know what the thing is, right?
Exactly.
If they could have figured it
Yeah.
out with their mind, they would have already done it and they wouldn't be in your office. And so
Yes.
I love that with NET, we're talking directly to the body.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what comes up all the time. People are always like, "I can't believe it was that. Like I thought it was this, but then it's that." And but it makes so much sense now that it's up. And it's exactly like you said. If they knew what it was, they would have known what it was and dealt with it. But yeah, the body is usually dealing with something else, and it usually doesn't make any surface sense. It usually is irrational because it's tied to some old event that was traumatic. So yeah, NET just gets you there real quick, and then you can do your job and unpack it and work on it.
And what I also love about NET that you don't see, and actually even a lot of the other somatic therapies, is the inclusion of is this mine or someone else's,
Yes.
right? Which really honors to me how so many of us are empaths and we're picking up on other people's energy, their thoughts, their emotions, their traumas. I mean, I say to people, just imagine, and that it includes the prenatal part, right? Like that when we're looking for the root cause of an issue, it may be from the in utero time. And people never think about that, right? Like, oh, yeah, I lived inside this person for 9 months. Maybe some of their stuff or some things they went through during their pregnancy is impacting me today, because I took that energy on.
Yeah, 100% it makes sense. That was such a game changer for me in one of my early NET treatments where it came up as sensitive to someone else's feelings, and it just like blew my mind. Like I can hold things that are really someone else's issue, and then like you said, it totally makes sense. Once you start putting it all together, and yeah, the physiology with the prenatal stuff, like of course that would influence you. Like why wouldn't it? But again, we never it just never occurs to us, or we never think that those things will affect us emotionally, or all that early childhood stuff. People don't even talk to little kids because they just think, oh, they won't remember that. But the body remembers everything.
Body remembers exactly. And that again, coming back to why like the mind alone is often not sufficient for getting to the root cause of things, because it can be pre-verbal. It can be exactly things that happen so early, or that that you got from someone else, the inherited trauma, like your intergenerational trauma stuff, like that's encoded in your DNA. Your cognition can't access that information. So can you just tell us a little bit about muscle testing? I don't know if we've really talked a lot on the show about it. We've referenced it, but we haven't really gone into it. Can you give us just a brief like education on that?
Yeah, muscle testing is it's a little bit controversial because I think it gets used in weird ways by different people. But the simplest thing is it's basically biofeedback. It's like I tell my patients it's like a low budget biofeedback tool. Like high budget would be like electrodes and like a polygraph, like that kind of thing where you're measuring feedback from the body. You're getting like a baseline, establish like, okay, what's the baseline? So when we muscle test, usually we use like an arm muscle. We just press down on an arm and establish a baseline. Like, what does this feel like when this person is just resisting to pressure? And then you start putting in some input, either by touching an area of pain, or touching meridian points on the body, or saying something out loud. I'm okay with I'm okay with my life right now. Things, you can pose anything to the body and then recheck in with the muscle test, and if the muscle test stays the same, then okay, it stays the same. But if suddenly the muscle test changes, it kind of glitches, we suddenly get like a drop in the arm or a weakness, it tells us that something triggered something. So it's not like a lie detector. It doesn't necessarily mean true false. It just means something triggered something. And then that's like our clue. Like why would, then it's our job as clinicians, why would that trigger something that's a neutral statement? And then if it's triggering something, we can then pair it with another input, like adding, touching an acupuncture or meridian point on the body, or adding something with it. And then if it suddenly changes it again, like, oh, that's weird, why did it balance out that trigger response when we touched the forehead? Then again, it's our job to like put that together and deduce, okay, well, if this goes with this, it means this. And you basically keep checking in with the muscle test to check in to see where is the body, because that feedback lets us know, are we on the right track or are we now way off on the wrong track? And that's another great tool that helps to really streamline that therapeutic process, because sometimes, as you know, in talk therapy and in my case in body based therapies, you can think you're on the wrong track and just be going down this like weird rabbit hole that doesn't have anything to do with the real issue. But the muscle test helps us to really stay on track and know when, track along with the body, like where is the body at with what we're working on.
Absolutely. It's been an invaluable information source. And it helps give words to sometime to an energy. Like people will say, ugh, this icky feeling, or like I can say, when they can't even say the statement, if you're doing like I'm okay making, they say they want to make $1 million a year, right? I'm okay making $1 million a year. They can't even get the words out because already there's an energy there of no. But they can't conceptualize it. But the muscle testing and following this protocol gives us information. We can get what the emotion is. The emotion is anger. Okay, well, whose anger? And what's the root of this anger? Because I think what people also don't understand, that I'm really trying to educate about all the time, is root cause. Like, so often something that's happening in present time, like, oh, my shoulder hurts, or I'm really pissed off that this thing happened. It isn't always about present time. It could be a unique one-time new thing, but almost always, to me, it seems like it's tracking back to something from the past that's unresolved.
Yeah. Yeah, almost always. And I tell people, it's go finding that old original event. It's kind of like bowling. If you can find it, that's like hitting that kingpin, that middle pin. Now you don't have to chase after all those 12 other pins, because the body will naturally like breeze through and handle all the recent things that are connected to the old thing. So that's the other power of the old thing, is it's like you save so much time and energy in the healing process if you can find and address that original old item.
And so, kind of one last area I want to explore with NET is, can you talk a little bit about meridians, what they
Mhm.
are, and how emotions are involved? What's the connection there? Because we've used these terms so far, but maybe not everyone knows what they are.
So meridians comes from Chinese medicine, and they're basically like little energy lines, like circuits that run through your body. So they're I basically think of them like an electrical, like a circuit board basically on your body. So when acupuncturists work with them, they're putting needles in there, and that's how they're accessing them. So with NET, we're touching a few of them, or a lot of times there's pulse points in Chinese medicine that goes with the different meridians, but they're basically energy circuits that correspond to all of the different organs in your body. And then in traditional Chinese medicine, there's different emotions that go with different organs. But if you think about it, it's not specific to Chinese medicine, because even in the West, even like our own language reflects a lot of these emotions that go with organs. Like for example, classic fear organs in the body are kidney and bladder. So what happens when scared, really scared, you piss yourself. So everyone's like, yeah, of course it would be kidney and bladder. Or our word, galled, for the bile, like, oh, the gall of that. Like, this is like kind of this like form of anger, or to have like a bilious personality, like again, like bitterness, or the heartbreak, that's like the center of love, or grief is like crying in the lungs. And so we have these correlations too. We just don't think about it, but that's where it comes from.
Well, and I think what we don't quite understand is that is how much everything is interconnected, right? Like, so let's say we experience a painful event like heartbreak, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, it hurts emotionally and maybe even mentally. Like, I'm thinking about what we usually look at as psychologists. Yeah, it hurts, you feel sad. Um it makes you think things like, oh, maybe I'm a loser, nobody loves me, you get into some limiting beliefs. And people might feel some like actual pain in their body, but I don't think they fully understand the interconnection between the body and the mind when it comes to emotional stuff, when it comes to, I mean, it's even ridiculous we call it mental health. It isn't just about the mind. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's all tied together, and unfortunately, we are in a time and place where everything has been like parceled out. You have a mental problem, you have to go to a mental practitioner. You have a back problem, go to a back doctor or whatever. But it's totally connected together. And yeah, you see it all the time in practice, where yeah, people will have like a mysterious shoulder pain, for example, and but there's been no injury, nothing happened, but it still hurts and they can't move it. But you go through the process, and sure enough, it's something about the liver, it's something on the gallbladder, which goes with some kind of like anger or resentment or frustration. And then they work through that, and they're like, oh my god, I can move my arm again. What's that about? Like, it can go in either direction. Sometimes having the body problem can create the emotions too. I've seen that too. And we see it all the time with people like heavy drinkers or whatever. If the liver gets screwed up, they're gonna have more depression, anger, frustration, and all that from the physical side, on top of whatever else is going on emotionally.
Yes, yes, which is a great segue to where I want to go next. But just to kind of wrap this piece up, how do you think learning NETs early on in your career, how did that impact? Because I feel like chiropractors who use NET are different. They end up having different practices than maybe more traditional, adjustment only chiropractors.
Yeah, I feel it's like you can't unsee something. So once you know that emotions are huge and are often the root of what's really going on structurally, it's really hard to just stay in the old traditional chiropractic model, which is like, yeah, it's gonna take 4 times a week for 6 weeks, like of like repeated adjustments, because there's a part of your brain that knows like the reason you have to keep adjusting one bone over and over again, and it keeps going back. Part of that reason could be because there's an emotion or a background trauma repeating, that keeps pulling the muscle, which keeps pulling the bone, which keeps making you have to. So it just, you just can't practice the old way. At some point you're like, I think there might be an emotion involved. And then you check it out and you do the NET, and sometimes that's it. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, well, there you go, good job. And then you don't have to keep repeatedly doing the same kind of structural approach. So yeah, it forces a change. You just can't keep doing it the traditional way.
I would also think that for many of your patients, that it would shorten the length of treatment, right? When there's this kind of root, and that it maybe doesn't keep coming back over and over again, right?
Yeah. So many things resolve much faster, and then that leaves, yeah, that smaller percent of, maybe there's been a real structural compromise, like an old fracture or something, where it's like, it's structurally compromised. But it does really shrink that pool of chronic cases that do need more aggressive structural work.
Mm-hmm. And so, over the years, now more recently, you kind of have moved away from even doing as much of the actual physical structural adjustment. Tell us more about that evolution and where you're at now. What are you working? Where's your interest now in working with people and bodies?
Yeah, my interest now, my practice is mostly an NET focused practice, so I'm not doing the comprehensive like do all the things. And earlier in my career, I did do a lot more, a little like higher volume, shorter visit, like do like more nutrition, structural work, like trying to kind of do everything. But as I get older, I'm almost 30 years in practice now. I realized like, oh, this is physical work, and like my body is not as interested in doing a lot of like rolling people around and big physical things. But also NET is so special, and even in San Francisco, there's probably 300 perfectly good chiropractors in the city, but there aren't that many people doing deep NET work. So I figure I can let them handle a lot of the day-to-day chiropractic stuff, and really focus this like final stretch of my career and my life, like really helping where I can help the most, which is probably with NET based work.
Yeah, amazing. And you've been writing. I was very privileged to actually read your first book, The Issues Are in the Tissues, which I love. I love the humor actually that you brought to that book, which was really more about your story, a lot of it, right? And now you've come out with a new book. Tell us all about this.
Yeah, my interest in the books is I really want to help empower people and cast like a broader net where people can learn how they can do more for their own health. Because again, in this time and place we live, access is an issue for a lot of people. Access to mental health, access to physical health, and people are not really taught how much power they already have themselves, like what they can do themselves that can have a huge impact. So this newer book, the Boost to Balance book, is like a 30-day program where every day I present like one simple thing that they can do that specifically would be good for their liver. And then over the course of 30 days, people make a big shift. So yeah, the idea is to really like help empower as many people as possible with what they already have.
Love it. And now let's talk a little bit specifically about the liver. Why is the liver so important? I mean, I know it to be involved in everything, but I don't know if everyone understands how important this organ is. It's one of our most important organs, I think.
Yeah, it's one of our most important organs, and it's the I guess I got originally led towards this project and this book because it came up so much in practice. Because people show up at the chiropractor for headaches, neck pain, shoulder pain, pain between the shoulder blades, knee pain. Like this is all jaw pain. This is all like classic liver gallbladder stuff. And when I would dig into the case more, it would turn out like sure enough, oh, there's some stress on these like liver and gallbladder circuits. Let's switch up the diet. Let's do this. And I found that as we really addressed the liver and the gallbladder, all this like musculoskeletal stuff would resolve, or their adjustments would go much smoother, or the treatment plan would really shrink. So it became just kind of like a standard thing that we would start to address with people. And the liver handles toxins and all of that. And of course, we don't have an awesome food supply. like you can't get around it. Everything is There's a lot of chemistry in the environment, chemistry and hyper processed foods and lots of sugar and additives. So our liver works really hard, and even if you do your best, you try to eat really clean, it's still in the air, it's in your personal care products, it's in your ambient there. We're exposed to things all over the place. No matter how well you try to take care of yourself, you just can't help it in modern life, and especially urban life. It's just around us, so the liver is constantly under stress.
Mhm. And so, yeah, because I think I remember reading an article recently about fatty liver disease. and how more and more people are getting diagnosed with it. It's often been thought of as something associated, and I think a lot of liver conditions, have been associated with alcoholism, right? Like, well, it's people that are really doing a number on their liver that are going to have these issues, but they're starting to see that it's not just them. It's anybody could be, and younger people, right? Like other things with the colon cancer, or why are so many young people developing colon cancer? So can you speak to that a little bit too? Because I think there could be a bias towards thinking, well, that couldn't happen to me. That just happens to the alcoholics out there.
Exactly. And a lot of my clients who have developed fatty liver disease and, have come in, are surprised. They're like, yeah, I don't drink. How did this happen to me? Or I'm not old. I don't drink. I don't, what is this? And in a lot of those cases, it's often from like too much sugar or, lots of bread and carbs. And again, we don't think about it, but white bread, processed carbs, like that has the same effect as alcohol on the liver, especially like over time and volume and just culturally, we don't think about eating what is a lot, like we don't think about like how a bagel is it may as well be cake. Like it's so much in refined carb on the liver, but like we don't think about it. um, because we don't even realize how some of our bread and stuff, it may look the same as what our grandparents were eating, but it's not the same as what our grandparents are eating. These changes happen on this like molecular, these like tiny levels that you can't perceive with your eyes or your mouth, but your body knows that it's different, that there's chemicals. So your liver is working really hard. So that's how you can just get you can develop that fatty liver without knowing it, just based on your genetic predisposition, what your diet's been like all these factors. But it's definitely not about just alcohol anymore.
Right. How would people know? I mean, obviously they should, keep up with their doctor checkups and blood work and things. Obviously, that's how they would find some of it. But are there any other signs that people can look for of an unhealthy liver?
Yeah, it's usually going to be things like, headaches. Like, why am I getting headaches all the time, even though, my doctor can't find anything? Or muscle tightness, especially in the shoulders. Between the shoulder blades is a really classic liver. That's usually liver, like right between the shoulder blades. Jaw, like clenching your jaw pain, grinding your teeth, that kind of thing. Or knee pain, but it's mostly this like upper, like shoulder, neck, head, like a lot of that tension. Or allergies are often, food sensitivities are often liver related. But I would say the most common is definitely that like neck, shoulder, like that tension, even though there's been no injury or no reason.
And what would it look like in terms of like what we would again call more the psychological kind of
Mm.
symptoms,
Yeah,
right?
so
Like,
psychologically, yeah, it's definitely going to be like a lot of like frustration, resentment, anger, depression feelings. Indecision is a big one. People don't realize can be like body related, like having just like a hard time making up your mind. Um, a lot of irrational feelings. Definitely aggression. I used to. I used to take my kid when they were little, go to the movies when like kid movies would come out, and I would just habitually, get like the popcorn or some horrible drink or something, because it's like your body's like programmed to do that at the movies. But then I would really try not to, because just like clockwork, about 20 minutes after, ingesting that crap, I would feel really angry. Like just like this like aggression would like come up, and then, then I'd be like a mean parent and ruin the day. But like it was crazy to see it in action, just like eat the liver harmful thing with all the, the dyes and the, processed sugar, and then just like notice that like 20 minutes later, just this aggression come up. And if you start to pay attention, you'll notice those emotional shifts when you put a strain on a certain organ like the liver.
So then moving into, I think, what you're trying to educate people with in
Mhm.
your book is how do people then move to a healthier state with their liver and body in general? Like, what are some of the things they can do?
Yeah, so like some of the things would be like to do the opposite thing. So just like like a syrupy drink like that can like push the liver in an unhealthy way. There's foods that can push it in a healthy way. So like bitter foods are usually good for the liver, especially like bitter dark leafy greens like collards, beet greens, like things like that, like really like hearty bitter greens can have a therapeutic effect on the liver. And just like 20 minutes after the soda you can feel aggressive, sometimes like 20 minutes after that like bitter green smoothie you start to feel like lighter, like happier. So things like that. Or there's different like massage, you can like massage around the liver, like sometimes like that can again help get some of that flow going, and that can help alleviate some of the mood. Or even just focusing on some of the positive liver emotions. The negative ones are like the anger, resentment, depression, those kind of feelings. But then there's positive ones, which is like gratitude and compassion and loving kindness, those kind of feelings. So if you can like do some gratitude journaling or meditating or focusing, like where am I grateful in my life? Where can I have more compassion? Cultivating those feelings can take some pressure off of the liver.
Is the concept of positive emotions associated with different organs, is that part of traditional Chinese medicine?
Yes, that is also part of it. And so the liver is usually associated with themes of justice, like fairness and justice. Yeah.
Interesting, because in all of my studies throughout massage school, where I learned shiatsu and things, and some of the five elements and things like that, and then learning NET. It's so interesting how the focus has been on the negative emotions. Like the chart we have in the office with NET as like anger, grief, low self esteem, but yeah, we don't. We It's so interesting. We don't really talk about the positive emotions, and we're so focused on the negative. I think that's a big piece of it. I think that's the direction we're going in as we're evolving, and especially spiritually as people are evolving. I think bringing in those frequencies of positive energies and emotions is going to be more and more important in the healing arts, I think.
Yeah. I agree. And I think we've focused more on the negative because people come in with problems. So it's like problem focused approach. But yeah, as we learn, like, oh, like focusing on the positive side can actually be very, very powerful too. I think there is going to be more focus on that.
So what do you say to the person, because I even noticed myself as the carb lover that I've always been, I notice there might be a little resistance to the idea of giving up. Now, I'm fully aware that there are different forms. Like I tend to eat sprouted bread, which I think might be better than Wonder White bread. But you tell me, like, for those of us who aren't willing to like completely abstain from food that does bring us joy and pleasure, what are we doing? What are
Well,
we
you
supposed to
you don't have to completely abstain, and I don't believe in that anyway. I don't think that's sustainable anyway.
do? Good.
So, but
Okay, phew.
yeah, but there's things you can do. And one thing that helps a lot of people actually, because everyone is different, again, based on your biology, your genetics, where you are, where you've been, like there is no perfect approach for everyone anyway. So I find that like wearing a continuous glucose monitor for at least a month or so, even if you don't have diabetes or whatever, can be so interesting and educational. You learn a lot about your body and how your body responds to food. And because like blood sugar spikes are really relevant to liver health, it's relevant information. So that's something I would recommend doing, just to learn how is your body responding to what you're eating and drinking. But like for the carbs, like for the bread, for example, one super easy thing everybody can do is just make sure you always eat a solid piece of protein first. Whether it's just a plain piece of chicken. I mean, that's the simplest thing for me. Just eat a piece of chicken or something. before you put any carb into your mouth, because that protein buffer helps like slow the speed that that carb hits your system, and so the body doesn't have to work as hard to like balance that blood sugar. Like what I've noticed, like like a classic diner plate of food, they always have your protein and then there's your toast and whatever. I used to always eat the toast first because I just like bread, but I noticed that it it ruins my blood sugar. Like if I do that, there's a spike, and it's so hard for me to recover. So I just thought that whole meal, I just thought, well, I guess I'm just screwed. But when I started eating all the protein off my plate first, I noticed that I could still eat the bread and even the hash brown, the potato, whatever, and I wouldn't get that spike. It would be like a gradual kind of like a glide, up and down, but it wouldn't put me in the red. Whereas the identical meal, if I eat that bread first, it, I'm ruined. So just the order that you eat is different, has a different effect on your body. And again, if you eat protein first, get that protein down there first, it changes, the hunger signaling and stuff. So you're probably not going to eat as much of the bread or the pastry or whatever. So that's going to help it too. Or all desserts are not created equal. So ice cream gets a bad rap, but ice cream actually, it has a fair amount of protein in it. So again, it's not going to have the same destructive spike as like croissant or whatever. So different foods have different impact, but protein makes a huge difference. And if you can get just a straight up protein in first, it really helps your body.
What about fat? Because as you're talking, I'm remembering, we're in the same kind of generation, right? Like there was a time, I don't know if it was the 80s and 90s, where fat was the enemy and everything was low fat and high, and then it became high carb, which really turned out to be the nemesis, the true nemesis. But I think fat has still got a bad rap, but it's actually quite healthy for us in the appropriate ratios, right?
Yeah, it still has a bad rap, but yeah, it's we need it. We need healthy fats, so you just want to avoid those processed fats. The hydrogenated oil. So basically, a bag of chips has the wrong kind of fat in it. But where most people are dropping the ball is protein. So mostly, if you focus on getting like good clean protein in, you're going to be ahead of the game. Most of the good that's missing is like the protein, and then most of the bad that's happening is, especially in America, too much carb, too much sugar.
And the refined kind, right? We're not talking about
Yeah,
fruits. We're not
right.
talking about the
fruit fruit
simple
can
sugars,
fruit
right?
can still spike it, and again, that's where like the glucose monitor can really help you see what's happening in your body. um, because like there's certain fruits that, I'm trying to think which ones are the worst for me. I mean, like I really can't have watermelon ever.
I
It
would think
always
pineapple. Pineapple is very high sugar, right?
Pineapple spikes it badly for me. But then like I can eat unlimited like blueberries, for example, and it doesn't spike it even if they're sweet. Or even something like dates, like it doesn't spike it as bad even though it's very sweet, and probably because there's a lot of fiber in those. So it's different. I had a patient who was like, I don't know, apples really screwed up her blood sugar, but pears didn't, even though they seemed comparably sweet. So with fruit, it really depends on the fruit and your body.
Yeah. Well, and again, just to speak to how unique everybody's chemistry is. I mean, over the years, we've seen so many of the fad diets, the blood type, and then this kind, and then the oh my god, whatever the Miami Beach one or whatever that was called, like right. I mean, over the year, and so there is no. Everyone is so very different, and that's where I think something like muscle testing. I know maybe you're not doing as much of it as you used to, but muscle testing for supplements, muscle testing, nutrition. People can bring in to someone who does muscle testing, they can bring foods in and we can see your body's energetic response. You can teach people to do the sway test. I do the sway test in the restaurant. Body, do you want this food? No, you don't. Okay.
Yeah, your body knows, and rational or not rational, your body's your body. Your body knows what it feels good with, and what it, for whatever reason, doesn't.
Are you an advocate of digestive enzymes? I feel like that's something so few people even know about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Almost everybody could use some, especially as we get older, because again, just like our natural physiology is such that if you're under like stress response, the body's gonna not make as many enzymes, and blood goes away from your digestion. And as much as we like try to do our best, we can't escape this like continual low level stress like around us. So our bodies, just because of the world we live in, um, there's always there's always a stress pressure, and one of the areas it affects is the digestion. So digestive enzymes help the body break down the food more efficiently. And our food is just harder to digest. It's not as close to its natural state. Nobody chews as much as they should. Like nobody's perfect. So I say, yeah, may as well like help the body along with the enzymes.
I still, all these years later, I'm still using digestive enzymes and supplements too. I was just talking to somebody yesterday who my intuitive sense was a client coming in who was nutritionally depleted. And I said, "Are you taking any vitamins or supplements?" No. And I said, "Well, our soil is so depleted. The food does not have the nutrients and minerals that it used to." I'm of the mindset that probably all of us would benefit from supplementation even beyond digestive enzymes. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a handful that kind of everyone needs. Like everyone is low on vitamin D, so practically everyone needs vitamin D. Practically everyone needs the enzymes. Most people need some kind of healthy fat, omega 3. Most people just aren't getting enough. So those are like the basic basics. And most people are depleted on their B vitamins because again they're not getting enough. They're not getting enough fresh vegetables, especially, but vegetables and fruits. And then B vitamins are water soluble, so your body doesn't store them. They just they need to use them and as needed. So most people do need some sort of supplement regimen if they want to be really optimal.
And I think more and more now we're understanding the connection between those nutrients and mental health, right? Like we know, for example, that people who have mood disorders like bipolar disorder or depression can benefit from the omega 3s, right? Um, People who are depleted with B vitamins are going to have fatigue and exhaustion. Maybe that shows up as depression, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's so
mean,
many things. And I wonder too, have you worked at all with kids or adults who've been diagnosed with ADHD and it turns out it's not really AD, it's like some food thing or food sensitivity or all that. Has that shown up in your
yeah.
work?
Yeah, I haven't had cases where it's been all just like the food stuff, but the food stuff makes a huge difference in management for sure. Yeah.
So are there any other resources or like if someone is just learning all this and going, "Oh my God, where do I start?" what would you recommend? Yeah, your book, obviously, that's a good start. Or is there anything
Your
else?
book, yeah, I think my book it's really simple. It's really laid out in very like simple, easy to handle step by step, so it's not overwhelming because this stuff can be super overwhelming. Um, but in terms of like if people want to go really deep, um,
Or like what kind of doctor should they go to, right? People don't even know where to start there.
functional medicine is like the phrase you wanna focus on in terms of like what kind of doctor. So typically, a functional medicine practitioner means already that they're going to be taking that wide holistic look. They're typically going to do blood work. So it's not just based on like something vague out in the ethers. Like they're actually looking at your actual physical numbers, like working with something there, and then they're going to work with you with combination typically of like supplements, lifestyle changes, pharmaceutical medicine if indicated, if that's under their license and stuff. But yeah, functional medicine practitioner is what to look for in terms of like one if you want like that whole integrative approach. Yeah, integrative health, functional medicine, those kind of words.
I'm so excited that that's finally a thing in Western medicine because for years it was chiropractors, naturopaths, Um, and which is great. I still work with a naturopath. I still work with a chiropractor, but I love that we now have integrative medicine happening and functional medicine. And um, yeah, and if it wasn't for my Lyme literate MD years ago, I would not have known I had Lyme disease. No other doctor was able to figure that out. So important. And so I really love about our conversation how much we've emphasized the interrelatedness, and that you really can't separate out what's going on in our bodies, what's going on in the mind, in the psyche. It's to me, it's all energy, right? So it's all inseparable.
Yeah, it's definitely inseparable. Yep.
Yeah. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with? How can people find you if they want to learn more about you, your book, your work?
Yeah, most of my social medias are at Dr. Kim 94102. My TikTok, YouTube, Instagram at DRKIM 94102. My link tree is Dr. Kim SF, DRKIM SF. My website is drkimsf.com. Yeah, I'll make sure to email you those links. You can put in the description here, but I'm pretty easy to find online these days.
And what do you think the possibilities are, to kind of leave people with, on the positive? What do you think the possibilities are for folks who have been like the average person struggling with stress, struggling with physical pain, emotional pain, if they were to start taking better care of themselves, taking better care of their livers, unresolved emotional stuff? Like, what is the promise that is the promise or the possibility of what's possible for us with that?
Yeah, the promise is like something will get better. So you don't know what until you do it. You don't even know what's connected to what until you do it. Like, I've been doing this like 30 years. I feel like I know it, but I don't know it. Like when I make changes, I'll be always surprised. I'm just like everyone else. I get on the wagon, I fall off the wagon. I get on, so I get back on the wagon. I might change one thing, like the water intake. It might be one thing, and then I might notice, oh, I've been sleeping much better since I changed the water. Like it'll be like I didn't even notice I wasn't sleeping well until now. It's better because I made that one change. Or yeah, you start integrating, the dark leafy greens. Like oh, wow, my stomach is flat all of a sudden. I didn't know that my stomach wasn't flat, or that it was. You just have your ideas like, oh, I must be getting old. I must be this. I must be that. And then you make a change, and you're like, oh wow. So you don't even know what's going to change, but something will change when you make these little differences. Whether it's, yeah, even just with the emotions. I went through a phase earlier this year where I was just like suddenly in this like weird, intense like gratitude love state, and I couldn't believe what a difference it made on my blood sugar numbers. Like my baseline fasting glucose was like 20 points better just from being a more lovey person, not even making changes on like the diet. And so every aspect makes the difference. And you just have to commit to doing something and doing it long enough to see. And if you don't see anything, okay, do something else, because everyone has some aspect that's going to make the big difference.
Wonderful advice, wonderful possibilities. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for being on the show today. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. If you have liked this episode, if you found useful information here, please do share, comment, pass it on to someone who might be searching for this information. And together, this is how we change the world, one person at a time. So thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.